Alright, hello people. I just wanted to make a quick video on how I fixed a code 45 for 1981 through 85 General Motors vehicles with the OBD1 code, diagnostic setup on there. Code 45 means that your fuel mixture is too rich. And all that is gonna mean is that obviously on a carbureted car, it's gonna run real sluggish and it's gonna flood when you're trying to start it, this, that, and the other thing. Because your mixture control solenoid on the E4ME or E4MC carburetor is pumping too much fuel into the carburetor when it's running in drive or reverse, whatever gear that's not park or neutral. It's going to be flooding your carburetor, causing it to flood when you're going uphill and this, that, and the other thing. So, code 45 was one of the 3 codes I pulled out of this car a couple weeks ago when I did that. I have a video on that, you can watch it if you like. And basically, if you have the book, the oldsmobile, whatever service book, I think if you own an old car, you should buy the books for them. Usually, this is a dealer service manual. I'm pretty sure it's either Mitchell or Chilton or something along those lines. But you can get these on eBay for like 20 bucks. I suggest just doing it because there's no information online for these kinds of cars, apart from my videos and a select few other videos you can find out there. There's really no information on these cars, so if you want to know how to fix them, buy the book. Anyway, there's a chapter in here, and it's 6E1 is the chapter, and that's going to be on codes, and all of these trouble codes are all in this chapter here. So code 45 is too rich exhaust indication. And basically what it says to start out with here is you're going to need a couple of things for starters. You're going to need a dwell meter, which is this. They don't make these anymore. I had to buy this one. It was only 20 bucks on eBay. And really, it works. And it's like, you're going to use this a lot on these 80s cars if you plan on owning a lot of these 80s GM cars. Chrysler maybe, but I don't think Ford did it very much. But GM in particular, you needed a dwell meter to test a lot of this stuff. So you're going to want to buy one of these things. 20 bucks, I saw some on there for 20, 30, 10, whatever. They're not expensive. They used to be all over the place, so you can get them for pretty cheap now that all these people don't need them anymore. The other thing you're going to need is a tachometer. Assuming your car does not have one, which, a lot of these 80s cars didn't. This is a digital tach. All it does is this lead here hooks onto your number 1 spark wire, and you just set this to 4-stroke cylinder 1, and it'll tell you what your engine RPM is. It's not perfect. It's not very precise. It'll kind of, mediate between, it'll go up and down and up and down. It won't stay static like a gauge would, but what can you do about that? It's the best you can do. That thing was, I think that was 20 bucks too. So those are the 2 things you're gonna need for this one. So what you wanna do is hook that dwell meter, hook the spark plug wire to that tach, which is just this number 1 spark plug wire. Hook that to your tach, and then hook the dwell meter. See, ground goes to ground, positive goes to positive. But the dwell meter, actually, a lot of people, including me before I did this, did not know what this green thing is right here on the engine. It's not hooked up to anything. It looks like it should be, but it's not. This little clip here is meant for the dwell meter. This is how you test your mixture control, or your lean fuel ratio mixture, with this here clip. And this is green because this dwell meter has a green alligator clip on it, and you hook this to your clip, your green harness on the car. So once you got that set up, you want to do this. Just what I said, is set that up, and then run the car at 3,000 RPM, which is pretty much wide open throttle for this car, in park or neutral, and note the dwell. It says use the 6-cylinder scale, but note the dwell. Okay, so this is where I screwed this up when I did mine. Is I put this thing here on the 6-cylinder scale, right? And I was looking at that 6-cylinder scale on the dwell side. What this is right here is my measurement wasn't accurate because this is reading RPM. So if I had a V6 or a straight 6, it was going to be reading the RPM of how high I was running it. So it wasn't gonna be accurate at all in any regard because it's not even a V6. So once I found that out, you need to turn this dial to dwell and watch the 6-cylinder scale. And it wants it to be between 40 and 60, right on 50 is where it is sort of supposed to be, I guess, or I guess below 50 is really the preferred area of where it's supposed to be. My guess is it's probably 40 is right around where it should be, and I'll get to why that is in a minute. But basically, if it's above 50, then you can go into your other testing procedures. But if it's below 50, then the problem is intermittent and should be disregarded, right? Well, I knew my problem wasn't intermittent because this car floods every time you start it, and you don't even have to touch the gas. It just floods automatically. When you're going uphill, it's cold outside, warm outside, doesn't matter. It will flood going uphill no matter what. So I know my mixture is off. It's running way too rich. And once with these computer-controlled carburetors, once you're in gear, it's not controlled by the carburetor adjustment screws anymore. It's controlled by the computer. So basically, according to this, is that if it's under 50, the trouble is intermittent and it's fine. So I got a check mark there because that's what mine said. But I didn't quite believe that. Because if you look over here, so if it's over 50 degrees, it tells you to get to curb idle and null to dwell, and then remove the PCV valve, or PCV source, so that you create a vacuum leak, but not a big enough vacuum leak to actually stall the engine, just to make sure that the dwell gets fucked up. So mine, since I had a theory, since mine was already lower than 50, but it's obviously not an intermittent problem, I figured, hey, my PCV is probably screwed up, right? So I went and bought a new one as well as a new hose, put that on, and then I got the reading that I was looking for. So it went over 50. So that basically, what this does is it drops at least 20 degrees below 50 is what it is telling you here. And since mine was already low, mine was at about 20 degrees when I was running at 3 grand. So I knew I had a vacuum leak that was already created. So once I fixed this, I was over 50. So we already knew what it did when it took it off. So okay would mean that it dropped at least 20. Mine did not. So when I did this, once I fixed the vacuum leak, it was running at over 50, and it dropped it to around 40-ish, I believe, on the scale here. It was running it right here in the middle of between 50 and 60, and when we unhooked that vacuum hose, it went down to about there. So it dropped about 10, maybe 15 degrees. It didn't drop down to 30. So if it had dropped down to 30, you'd be looking at, your evap crap is messed up or your solenoid connectors are screwed up. We know all that stuff is good because it's a brand new carburetor. So we started doing this. You disconnect the oxygen sensor, you ground the harness, and you know the dwell. And ours changed the dwell. So if it was no dwell change, it would mean the ECM is bad. But it didn't do that. The dwell dropped to about 5. So it was under 10 degrees. So then it wants you to go down here and put the ignition on and remove the ground, and then check the ground to the harness with a voltmeter, which we did. And it wants to have 55 volts on it. And if it's over 55, or 0.55 volts, if it's over that, then your ECM is bad or your connections are bad or some other nonsense. But if it's under it, which mine was 0.21 volts, it means you have a faulty oxygen sensor. So that's what I did. I replaced the oxygen sensor. Unfortunately, I don't have the old one because I threw it away and the garbage got taken out since I did that this morning. But I replaced the oxygen sensor, replaced that PCV, started the car, and it seems to run a lot better. Now, the timing is still off because I still have that code 21 in there, which is a TPS unit failure. But it does run a hell of a lot better now than it did. And I'm going to start it here so you can see. Alright, so the high idle is on right now because it's cold still. It was just sitting outside, and the timing is still too advanced, so it's running a little bit faster than it needs to be. But if you heard it run in my videos before, it was running extremely choppy, extremely rich, extremely rough, and now it's actually pretty okay. It's running, you know, like it should. It's not shimmying. It's not, you know, trying to stall out. It's I know you can't smell it on the camera, but it doesn't smell like gas. It's running a lot better. So as it turned out, it was the O2 sensor, and the PCV was leaking too, so that probably wasn't helping it, but it was the O2 sensor that was bad. So that's how I fixed my code 45. I know it's kind of a janky video and probably isn't going to be very easy to follow, but these books, very helpful. Get one of these books. So I made a little footnote here that fixed it, is I replaced the O2 sensor and the PCV valve and hose. So if I ever own another one of these cars, God forbid, I'll know how to fix this if I have this rich exhaust indication. Next up, I'm going to be fixing my code 21. I will make a video on that. Is this it? No, it's not. This one right here, code 21. I'll make a video on this once I do that. I'm going to do that right after I make this video. So hope you enjoyed. Hope I helped somebody. Especially with that green clip. You know, that's something that I wish someone had told me sooner about that green clip, what that was for, because when I first got this car, I was looking all around, trying to find where that hooks up on the car. That's a test clip. It's supposed to be right there. So, yeah, that's basically it. See you in the next one.